Tim was talking to me about tariffs, and one of the things, and he made a good case, is that Samsung is their number one competitor, and Samsung is not paying tariffs because they're based in South Korea, and it's tough for Apple to pay tariffs if they're competing with a very good company that's not. I said, how good a competitor? He said they are a very good competitor. So Samsung is not paying tariffs because they're based in a different location, mostly South Korea, but they're based in South Korea. And I thought he made a very compelling argument, so I'm thinking about it.
Come in, Rebecca Fannin, a Tech Titans of China author. So, Rebecca, what do you think about it? Does Apple have a case that the tariffs shouldn't apply to what they do in China?
Well, Apple is competing with Samsung, which is the leading mobile app company, and I think they do have a case. I think we do need to have more open economy, more free trade. But on the other hand, Apple is producing in China and Samsung is producing in South Korea. So this gives Samsung a leg up over Apple. And so Tim Cook does have a case in his specific incident. But overall, I think that we do need this open economy. We need free trade. I think it's good for the global innovation economy overall. I think it helps consumers and businesses.
But the question is, China made this huge, great leap forward. I think you used that phrase, borrowing from Mao Zedong's phrase. But in high tech, they made this big leap. How much of their big leap was based on technology they stole from us?
Well, I don't think that they stole technology from us, but...
You don't think they stole any technology from us? I think even Chinese technology wizards would admit that there was some of that going on.
Well, what was happening is that China was coming in, investing in U.S. tech companies, and they invested in many leading companies in the U.S., including Uber, Lyft, Magic Leap, Riot Games, Tesla, and they were learning.
They were doing more than learning. I mean, there were some members of the Chinese government that were sent in to literally spy on tech companies, steal some of that hardware, or somehow try to devolve it and figure out the way that American companies were evolving with that technology and bring it to China. So, I mean, there really was a concerted effort on the part of the government to steal from the United States.
Well, I think that the FBI is looking at 1,000 investigations right now. They're investigating these cybersecurity incidents, and I think the jury is still out. We need to see what the outcome of that investigation is. I do think China has come into the U.S. They have invested in our leading U.S. technology companies. They have gone to school at our finest schools, and they have worked in our finest tech companies in Silicon Valley and elsewhere. And they have gone back to China and taken a lot of the know-how and copied what we have done in the U.S. and made the Facebook of China, the Google of China, and so forth. But now today, what China is doing is that they're actually innovating in their own right. And these business models...
Forgive me for interrupting, but do you think that's why they're making the progress on 5G, is their own innovations? Because clearly they have, what, a tenfold gain on us in terms of the platforms for 5G that they have over there.
They're definitely outspending us in 5G infrastructure, and they're getting ahead in other very important tech sectors, such as AI. China has a national government priority to get ahead in at least 10 technology sectors that really matter.
Let's talk about AI for a second, because this is something, as I'm sure you know, that Peter Thiel, one of the great minds in high tech, says is a problem. When companies like Google are trading information on AI in their dealings with Chinese companies, the government gets involved, and some of that AI finds its way to the military, to the Chinese military, which is not our friend. Is that a problem?
Well, we do have companies. The leading AI company in the world, the most valuable AI company in the world, is from China. It's a company called SenseTime. And they're very big in facial recognition, which can be used by police to track, criminals.
Absolutely.
And can be used to track just jaywalkers.
We've seen it just with we've seen it with these Hong Kong protests. We've seen it being employed in this case.
Right, but SenseTime is actually working with Honda on autonomous vehicles. They're working with Qualcomm, and Qualcomm is an investor in SenseTime. And they're working with Qualcomm on next generation mobile devices. So it's not all, such a bad scenario.
All right, but it does concern me. I have to ask one final question. Who wins in 5G? Who gets their whole system tied into 5G first, China or the United States?
Well, what's happening right now is you have a race. China has its own standards and developing its own standards, and it's being accepted in many countries around the world. The U.S. is fighting back. We're not allowing China 5G to be in this market. Same thing with Australia.
But the
many
answer
other.
to the question is China or the U.S.?
Who's going to win? I think the jury's still out. I think
Okay.
what's happening is that China is definitely, well, China will have its own standards, and those standards will go into Asia. And I think the U.S. and the Western world will have its own standards.
Wow, two systems.
Two systems.
We've seen that before. Rebecca Fannin, Tech Titans of China is the name of the book. Rebecca, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.